Ever wonder what a banker, investor, or financial analyst thinks of your cash flow statements? Well, this short video will go over several weaknesses commonly found in cash flow statements and give you an insight to what they may be thinking as they look at your cash flow statement. Simply knowing these weaknesses can often be just what is needed to allow you to improve your cash flow statements and increase your chances of gaining needed funding, but more importantly, your chances for success. Hello, I'm Dr. George Millsap, State Director for the North Carolina Small Business Center Network, and I'll be your host. This is a simple overview and not a comprehensive lesson on cash flow statements, so we invite you to contact a small business counselor professional at the Small Business Center, SBC, located nearest you. You can find your nearest SBC by going to sbcn.nc.gov or ncsbc.net. Two addresses, same website. Simply click on Contact Your Local SBC and you're on your way. Now on to the cash flow statement. You can find lots of different templates if you're creating a cash flow statements online and in a number of books. Which one you use isn't as important as how you complete the statement. I used one developed by our friends at SCORE. You can find this template by simply going to score.org and then typing in cash flow statement template into the search box. You'll be given the number of options of which ones to pull up. Simply hit download and you'll have just that very comprehensive cash flow statement you needed right at your fingertips. The one from SCORE is very good. So good, in fact, that I had to butcher it a bit for this example. Sorry, guys. Okay, so here's a cash flow statement. But before we get started on what's wrong with this example, let's explore just a bit on how a cash flow statement works. They're pretty straightforward, actually. Most templates have a pre-start column, which is used to capture all the cash flow in and out of the business prior to the actual start of the business. Investments, business licenses, leasehold improvements, and all that sort of thing go in that column. As you can see here, we started out with $0, had sales of $100, which gave us a availability of $100. There were some expenses documented down here, and apparently we ended up with more money going out than coming in because the next month we started with negative $400. Add sales, total availability, take some expenses away, and you start up next month with, well, not quite as much cash going out. Sales, expenses, up, down, just kind of standard through there. It's pretty easy. Now, hopefully those negative numbers will start declining. And that's the point where your business is starting to bring in more cash than's going out. Do a full year or two cash flow, as the first couple months might not be where the largest negative number is. Whatever that largest negative number is, that's what you would use as the basis on how much funding you may need to start the business. Of course, you don't want to inject that exact amount into the business because you want some cushion. But that's where you get your start. Don't prejudge how much money you need. Let the business tell you how much you need, and so on for the cash flow. This cash flow just screams, don't fund me, don't fund me. But why? The person that developed this probably used a template and developed the cash flow from an example in the book. First thing I noticed is it says month 1, month 2, month 3, month 4, month 5. Don't do that. Last I checked the calendar, they have names like January, February, March. Okay, so let's fix that. Bang. Now that we're using real months, it doesn't take long to see the next huge red flag in this example. It's in the sales line, right down here. Check it out. 10,000, 12.5, 12.5, 15, 15, 17.5, 17.5, and on up. A nice upward slope as you might expect in a startup business as it picks up, right? Wrong. Sales rarely slope up so neatly, and when I see this, I immediately question whether the person who created this cash flow has any clue at all about business cycles. Business cycles? Yeah, business cycles. That's the natural ups and downs in sales inherent in pretty much every business there is. Let's take a look at a couple. Here's a year, January through December, and here are 3 businesses. Sales going up and down per month. Wow. Let's look at them one by one. This blue one down here starts the year pretty low, pops up a bit in the spring, and then falls back down until late fall when it just blasts up with huge sales. What type of business could create such a business cycle? Well, something like a toy store. Has a little bump in the spring when folks go out and buy those bats and balls and beach supplies and drop back off until, well, the Christmas season, and then it just goes crazy. How about this next one, this red one? It doesn't look like it's doing that great in January. It gets even worse in February. And then it picks up a little bit and down, up, and then back down again. And it has its highest months in the fall. A restaurant might be something that would create a business cycle like this. Worst month's the first of the year and picks up. The reason they're so bad right there, that's when that reality of those holiday bills hit us. And then it picks up really well in the fall. So how about this last one, the green one? It's really high in the summer, drops, and picks up again near the holidays. It's probably some sort of tourism-based business. The key to remember is, no matter what business you're starting, it has a unique business cycle that you should learn and should be incorporated into your cash flow statement. Sales that nicely slope up aren't typically the case. They might go up, but they should also follow this business cycle. In fact, there's another important thing about business cycles that affect your cash flow statement. Business cycles affect your cash break-even point. By cash break-even point, I mean those months where the money coming in, cash coming into the business, equals the cash going out of the business. Most people think of break-even points, or BEPs, in terms of profit and loss, but we really don't care that much about profit and loss because profit has never paid a bill. Cash pays bills. In this example, there are some times when there's more cash going out of the business than coming in, and sometimes when there's more cash coming in than going out. This affects when you may want to consider to start that new business. Here we have the red highlight for when there's more cash going out of the business and some green highlights for when more cash is coming in. Now let's think about that. There's a lot of cash going out right here. If I were to start my business over in this end, January, February, March, then what I would be doing is watching my cash roll out of the business. I'd be making a little bit of money here. I'd be happy, and then the cash starts rolling back out. Well, that means I have to have a whole lot of cash in order to cover all this red through here, which would increase my risk and also increase my financing cost, as compared to starting down here in the October, September time frame, where I could start in this area, September, October, and then immediately bang and catch that nice wave up of having a whole lot of cash come into my business. Now, when you do this, don't start right at the tip when it starts to come into the best part of the season. Why? Well, there's this dude. His name is Murphy. He has these laws. Something will go wrong. Things won't happen exactly as planned. Allow for that. Give yourself a little bit of a time to work things out before you hit that big sales season. When I look at a cash flow, I'll look to see if your sales follow that cycle, and I'll also look to see if you're starting the business at the right time of the year for that business cycle. Okay, let's move on. Let's look back at sales. Now, I haven't corrected these sales, but let's look at this. How did you estimate sales? Or did you estimate sales? If you just guessed, that would be the wrong answer. You need to find some way to make this really, really important question mark of sales as small as possible. Do some research. Check industry averages. Also, you can check industry averages for your size of business and your area. A small business owner director can assist you with that if you can't find it on your own. Sometimes franchisors will estimate sales for you. And if all else fails, you can use a tried and true method of camping out near one of your competitors and counting the customers that come in and come out. Easy enough, but you would be surprised at how many people have come to me to start a restaurant and haven't done any of those things. There are other methods. The more important thing is to estimate sales as closely as possible, but don't get rosy in this area. It's better to be conservative here, because if you overestimate sales, you may underestimate the amount of money it takes to start your business and operate your business, which would result in a failed business. Not good. Okay, let's say that we fixed the business cycle and say that we've fixed our sales estimation. Let's look on in expenses. Again, it doesn't take long for those red flags just to pop right up. The first expense down here, purchase merchandise, seems to be pegged to sales. That's because it is. It's 35% of sales. Nothing wrong with that, as long as you always pay for your purchases in the same month and sold, which is not as likely as you might think. Typically, merchandise arrives, you get some amount of time to pay for those goods, and hopefully you sell those goods within that time frame, but perhaps not. Again, your business type and financing arrangements should dictate that relationship between sales and purchase some merchandise. If you're operating a tap room, you might be dead on with listing it as it's shown here. Get the beer, pay for it when it arrives, then it's sold for consumption very quickly afterwards. However, if we were selling home furnishings, when goods arrive, they're may be paid for, and they may sit on that floor for a while before they're sold. So when they arrive and when they're sold and when you have to pay for them may differ drastically. Whatever's correct for your business, make sure that your cash flow statement takes those issues into hand. Okay, so let's look at another expense. Utilities. Yeah, well, here in North Carolina, it gets cold in the winter and it gets hot in the summer. I pick August because it is hot in North Carolina in August. Unless you're on some type of level bill pay, you would expect to see utilities reflect that reality of ups and downs as temperatures increase and decrease. In fact, anytime I see of a bunch of expenses like this that all are the even all throughout the different months, I assume they did a simple copy paste with very little, if any, thought behind it. It's important that for each expense you have that you think about not as much how much it costs per year, but when it's paid for. Do you pay insurance annually, semi-annually, quarterly, or monthly? Find out not how much it costs total, but when it's actually paid out. It's a good practice to have documentation that supports each and every expense listed in the cash flow statement. Get an estimate of the telephone cost. Figure out how much each employee will make, when they will work, how many hours per week they will work, and then use that information to develop an accurate estimate of payroll expenses. Now let's point out one more important boo-boo in this cash flow statement, and that's owner's withdrawal. Your pay. Never put down how much you want to make or put down some arbitrary number. No. Instead, compute how much money you must have to float your personal boat. Curtail your expenses as much as possible. A lower number here will mean a lower break-even point as well as a lower demand for financing. I've seen that this one item here alone has made or broke a number of loan deals. Keep it low. Bankers know that whatever's left, you get to keep. Don't artificially bump this number up. Okay, so let's review a little bit about what we've learned. All right, here's some tips for good cash flow. Use actual months, not numbers. Remember business cycles and build them into both your sales projections as well as when you would start the business. Estimate sales, don't just guess. Document all of your expenses. Keep down those owner's draws. And have somebody else review your cash flow statement. Visit your local small business center director who will review your cash flow statement and your entire business plan confidentially and for free. Remember, if you have any questions, go to our website. Click on Contact Your Local Small Business Center and we'll be right there to help.